I'd like to start our meeting with my favorite councilman. If Greg, are you ready to address us and tell us what's going on in the big city?
Yeah, hi everyone. Of course, really hard afternoon, night, and morning for a lot of us. But I appreciate both of you mentioning how this is a moment to continue to strengthen our resolve to pick up some of the weight that that Justice Ginsburg carried for so long. And you know, it's no secret that every day our top state and federal leaders are making our communities more unequal and more unjust. It's never been more clear than during this pandemic, when in so many ways we could have avoided so much of this, so much hurt and pain in our community across the country. And then especially as we see a U.S. House that is voting on real relief and extending unemployment benefits and doing what they need to do to provide help to local cities for the public health and our small businesses. And then to see Mitch McConnell force everybody to sit on their hands at the U.S. Senate and for us to not get the help that we need. And so the election is so important. And really at the city, what I and so many other people are dealing with every day and every week is how to figure out how we fend for ourselves. It's really up to Austin and our county and our local government to be a model of what progressive and inclusive democracy can do, even with the really limited resources we have compared to the state and federal government. And, you know, I've been a critic for some time that too often we settle for progressive branding as opposed to living up to what we fully are capable of as a community. But I think that also in the last few months, we've seen organizing and people pushing like never before to make change and to live up to the greatest parts of what Austin is about. People coming together and volunteering and taking care of one another and taking care of one another's kids and making sure that everybody makes it through this really, really hard time. And then also who are pushing City Hall like never before on issues of civil rights and racial justice. So happy to talk today because I'm sure that people might have questions about the police budget vote. I think the last time I saw you all was right at the beginning of the protests against the senseless and needless killing of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and here locally, Mike Ramos. And I've seen how in Austin, when people come together and push, the politically impossible becomes a reality. I saw that before I ran for council and when I was organizing alongside immigrant construction workers here in North Central and Northeast Austin, when City Hall didn't want to pass laws to give people the right to a water break, or didn't want to pass laws to give people even $11 an hour, and then saw how those folks pushing could really make change. And similarly in this moment, I've seen budget after budget after budget where so much of the money that we need for mental health services, domestic violence prevention, homelessness services, just we face both a state government that makes it so that our tax system does not allow us to derive revenue from big companies and high incomes and the right sources, really forces austerity at the city in many ways. And then that the really few remaining dollars so often get sent to policing and perpetuating the idea that jailing is going to fix some of our most serious problems, and it just hasn't. And so I think what the city did really at the community's call over the course of years, the right thing for us to dedicate our limited resources this year to COVID recovery, to helping those people and businesses that are struggling, to ambulances and our medics that are on the front lines, to those mental health programs, to improve training, and to the city's first civil rights office. So that is a lot of where we are. But I think a lot of our greatest challenges are still to come. We have not gotten the relief packages that we need from the federal government. We are starting to see even more local businesses close. As we brought cases down of COVID, there is the governor is starting to feel more confident, open more things up. You know, he let UT have their big football game, and I hope that the measures they implemented helped slow the spread some, but we're starting to see a slow uptick in cases. And we have to change, obviously, have to make transformative change in November, have to get Mike Siegel is coming up, have to get him elected, have to even more clearly after last night, not only take the White House, but the Senate. And even if we do all of those things, we still really risk on the other side of COVID-19 becoming more unequal and more unjust, because we're seeing, Amazon and these other big companies do really, really well during the pandemic, but the essential workers that have kept us going could get left behind, or we can rally like we have as a community on other issues. In other cases where people have told us something was impossible, really come together, and in the coming months and years, actually come out on the other side of this more equal and more just. That's part of why we decided to still put the mass transit election on the ballot, because we need to transfer to clean energy and create union jobs and create mass transit opportunities in the city, and the opportunity for people to not have to own a family having to own maybe 2 cars to get back and forth from work. That's why I think we are totally rethinking this idea of what the local government really focuses and invests in. If we can actually invest in workforce development and invest in new forms of public safety so that people can get jobs, being social workers and taking care of the people who need real taking care of. And so we have a real chance to move forward, not back. But we know we have a governor that wants to send us back. We know that there's a risk that we could settle on the Black Lives Matter movement being more about words than sustained action. But I think that Austin can really do it because we just have all these people stepping up in amazing ways to do things that we never would have thought we'd been able to do before. So we still have those really big challenges. I know folks are talking about homelessness, our shelters by COVID-19.
Greg, you're cutting out a little bit.
Sorry. Let me see if that's I think it might also be. It sounds like there's a few people unmuted on the line, but I think maybe it's causing some feedback. But anyway, maybe that's a good time to just end. And
Well, I would like to make 2 observations while you were speaking. That we were talking about the crime and how it was being handled. I think the tough on crime idea started in the Nixon administration. I could be wrong there, but it's been many, many years. And it hasn't worked. And somehow we haven't seen that sending people to jail for a misdemeanor or, possessing 2 ounces of marijuana or whatever is not the way to handle crime. And eventually we're going to wise up. And the city of Austin, I think, is leading in the idea of funding counseling and help as opposed to, the military type action that has been precedent in our criminal system. So I have to applaud Austin. I've also noticed that the city of Austin gets a lot of national attention. So Austin can typically lead the rest of the nation. And the way you're fighting uphill, paddling against the current all the time has got to be admired by the rest of the nation. So just keep hanging in there. We're behind you. We're supporting you. Anything you need, just give us a call, okay? Now I'm going to open it up for questions. Anybody have any particular questions they'd like to ask Greg?
Yeah, I do actually. I have my hand raised.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, all right, Greg, my concern, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, is with the police association, because I was listening in the other night when Jimmy Flanagan and Vicki Goodwin were hosting a town hall, and I was listening to the police association, and I wanted to know, how can we work with them if they're going to have the billboard up, about not coming to Austin? Do you have any suggestions on what we can do about this?
It's really unfortunate, and it's something we're seeing police associations do across the country. So it's kind of a coordinated thing. We see police associations across the country endorsing Trump. We saw our local police association here host the governor to spread misinformation. And and it's just wrong, and it actually makes people less safe. There's studies that show that you actually make a community less safe if you fearmonger and make people not trust one another. They keep saying that Austin, is now becoming a danger capital. The fact of the matter is, of the 15 biggest cities in the country, Austin and San Jose have the lowest homicide rates of the 15 biggest cities in the country. They don't want people to hear that because they want people to be scared. Now, no killings or homicides are acceptable. And so what we need to do is focus in on where is that happening. And it's really generally concentrated amongst people who know each other, oftentimes in very low income communities and really dire straits. And we need to in on that. But of course they don't want to have that conversation because it's become a political thing, right? It is that if you aren't doing exactly what they want, then you are trying to get people hurt. And that nothing could be further from the truth. And no one on council is saying that being a police officer is an easy job, or that our police officers are all bad. I mean, nobody's saying that. Nobody has said it. But then they keep saying that that's what's being said. And it is frankly, and it's kind of becoming kind of an extremist right wing thing across the country. And they have a right to their free speech. I just think we all have a right to then to push back really hard on what they say that's not true.
But how do we work with them?
I mean, at a recent council meeting when we were trying to change their contract to reduce the chances of police misconduct being protected. I don't know if you guys remember Breon, the elementary school teacher who got slammed to the ground. The police union contract made it so that we could not discipline that officer for what he did. And it was only a while later that he got caught with his boot on someone's head, and he ended up getting fired because he got caught quickly. When we tried to change the police union contract to fix that issue, their head of their association came to the council dais screaming at Jimmy and cussing at Jimmy in council chambers. So I think that frankly, it comes down to our police officers saying that kind of leadership is no longer acceptable. Because right now, actually, our city council unanimously signed a pledge to not seek their endorsement because their leadership, not the police officers themselves, but their leadership that they've chosen at the association has just become so destructive. And so I think oftentimes we're like inviting police officers themselves to come to our council committees to share their thoughts for the frontline people to participate in this because, the leadership, the police association leadership has just gone so aligned with things that we're against.
And I've experienced situations like that myself. I don't know if I told y'all, but several years ago, before I moved to Austin, I came down here for my son's birthday, my younger son, and we were downtown at Coyote Ugly's, and the police mistook him for somebody else, slammed him to the ground and handcuffed him, smacked my daughter-in-law around, and then when I protested, they told me to shut up or I'd wind up in jail. Naturally, I shut up. But then literally $8,000 later, hiring an attorney and paying bond and so on and so forth, they found out it wasn't the right person, and we never even got an apology. So yeah, the police in Austin, there are some good ones, because I have met some good officers. I'm not saying that, but there's some pretty bad ones in there too, and that has to be addressed. So I applaud our city council for taking the action they are. And like I said, you're paddling upstream, but keep paddling. Anybody else have anything? Let's see. David, yes, go ahead.
If I can just follow up with Greg. What do you think of the governor's threat to take over the Austin Police Department? Is this just empty campaign rhetoric, or is this actual, to distract from COVID and get his base riled up, or is this actually something that they could seriously try to do in the next legislative session?
I feel pretty clear that the primary purpose of it is campaign season. I mean, the governor woke up in Austin got in a car and went to Fort Worth to have a press conference about the Austin police budget. And because it's in Fort Worth where they're having their contested, where we have those contested state house races, right? And so for them, it is all about not Austin voters. It is all about trying to hold the state house, right? They had 3 press conferences in 2 weeks about 3 bills about the Austin police budget, right? I mean, I wish they were doing that much for our students and teachers trying to like figure out how to do school safe, right? But they're not doing that. So it's clear that their goal is distraction. But I also will not discount how horrible of bills they will file. And now that they're on record about it, I think they will have to file those bills. And so we will have to fight and beat those back. Now, some of them won't be legal. Many of them won't be doable. You know, they haven't even written most of this up. I mean, I haven't seen actually a significant, any of them having a bill, but they will.
Is it actually legal?
You know, most likely, you know, we've saw a Statesman article saying that it was. I think the way that they would fund it sounds not legal, right? I mean, for them to expand the boundaries of DPS is one thing. For them to expand the boundaries of DPS, incorporate the Austin Police Department, and then have us pay for it sounds a little bit like Trump saying Mexico is going to pay for the wall. So I just don't quite. It's hard to say it's legal when it's not. There's not a bill. We'll have to fight anyways, right? I mean, for the last few sessions, there's been an increasing bipartisan coalitional work on criminal justice issues, and they seem willing to shatter that to save the House. The last thing I'll say on this is, you know, there are folks, and I understand, you know, I'm in touch with many of the people working on those swing races and across the state. You know, is this making our job harder in November? And in my view, you know, we have to do the right thing. We have to be smart about how we do it, but we have to do the right thing, right? I mean, when Houston passed HERO, of course, Dan Patrick decided to campaign on the bathroom bill and against trans folks' rights, right? When we decided to stand up for people's paid sick days in 3 cities, of course, there were people who decided to champion, you know, people not having paid sick time. So, you know, we're used to the bad guys campaigning against civil rights movements, but it's up to us as Democrats to step up, do it, and then still try to win the elections while trying to be smart about it. Of course, you know, there's lots of misinformation about what we did. We've tried to be really transparent every single time about what we are up to. You know, every Facebook post, everything that I've written, I make sure to explain it. And sometimes it takes 2 or 3 tweets to get the information out. But the best thing for us to do is to continue to talk to our neighbors about why it's the right thing and what it is we're trying to get done.
Yeah, okay. Anybody else have any more questions for Greg?
I have a question. This is Daniel.
Hi, Daniel. Please go ahead.
Greg, I'm concerned about the branding of this issue. Defund the police. That's so easily attacked and can become a campaign issue for the Republicans to beat Democrats over the head with. I hope that you can come up with a better name for it, because it's gonna be a hard sell to the average Texan that we need to defund police, when what you really want to do is reallocate.
Oh, and so I have found in talking to community members, right, that, and the reason I talk about it the way I just described it when I did my little introduction is the way I've always talked about it, because there are certainly some people that the defund component is the primary interest. There are definitely some people, though, that are more interested in seeing mental health services funded or homeless services funded, and people who get confused saying, well, did you reduce the police budget but not get anything for it? So that's why I've always tried to be really clear about this. At the same time, when, you know, activists and people in the streets and that are marching have their slogan and their way of talking about it, that is up to them for their conversation. You know, of course I wasn't, you know, alive or around when, as Sandra was talking about Richard Nixon, but I'm sure there were people in rooms saying, man, I wish it was Black equality and not Black power. But the fact of the matter is, it is, I think, within those civil rights leaders' prerogative to send their message and for other people to talk about it however it is they want to talk about it. you are right that the words defund police generally do not poll well. But in the end, right, that's why I think we all have to carry our own message. And I talk about it as, this is what we did. We took $20 million by pausing police classes to improve those classes and move that over to other services. We're trying to make some parts of policing independent, like internal affairs should not be a part of APD because the police shouldn't police themselves. That's the way I talk about it. But frankly, activists are also going to talk about it the way they do. And I think it's really hard to, for political leaders to like brand activists' own movements, right? And so it makes it harder for us. I do think it's harder being a Democrat because we do the right thing, we build coalitions, and we sometimes lead on things that aren't popular yet. Colin Kaepernick taking a knee at football games polled terribly when he started. And so I'm not disagreeing with the thing you've said. I'm just, I think about it a lot. And so I wanted to sort of give you my thoughts on all that.
Well, and just to transition, Greg, to like how I'm dealing with this in the congressional level. I mean, I've never said the words defund the police or use the hashtag. I talked about public safety, as a congressional candidate. And truthfully, we are the party of public safety. For example, almost 200,000 Americans have died because of this completely failed response to COVID-19. And we would have saved many, many lives if we had followed, the recommendations of scientists and the CDC. We believe in climate change, that it's a national security risk. And if we had taken stronger action on climate change, maybe the West Coast wouldn't be in this drought where they're susceptible to these fires, which are hurting people. And so on public safety, I think we have to lead. And so we can't just be buttonholed into this, yes or no, defund the police kind of thing. Let's actually have a conversation about what real public safety is. And one of the things that I talk about that people really understand is that, a police officer in our academy, Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, it's about 4 or 6 months of training, right, for a police officer? How long is an academy?
There's shortened and lengthened ones, but yeah, it's several months long.
And so like the idea that a social worker might have 2 years of training, I mean, public school teachers, conflict resolution specialists have much more training, and these people might be more equipped to handle a crisis, a mental health crisis, a dispute that doesn't need to lead to violence, and a person with a badge and a gun might not be the best person to respond to it. And so to talk about public safety, I think that's firmly in our wheelhouse. And I will say, we can't be afraid of talking about public safety just because the other side is going to act in bad faith. Because even though I haven't said defund the police, it's not on my website, it's not in any arguments, Michael McCall right now is running ads in Houston. My family in Houston saw it, calling me dangerous because I want to abolish prisons and defund the police. It's not true, but they're saying it anyway. And so it's like, if they're going to lie no matter what, let's just be us, and let's build our coalition. Let's speak to the needs of the people. And I think we're going to be rewarded when we do that.
I got to mention something else. See, I'm older than dirt, so I remember things, from before all of you probably were born. But there was a thing years ago called truth in advertising, and the federal government actually stepped in and corrected advertising that would lead you to believe something that you wanted to know but wasn't true. And that kind of translated into public speaking, which meant candidates, had to speak the truth. Somewhere along the line, that got changed. Even in our advertising, I see things that I know for a fact are not true. And yet they, blasted all over the nation saying this is the way it is. So we have lost that, and we need to get that back. But I have seen more than one lie, just blatant lie. And sometimes they're so incredibly egregious that you wonder how anybody could believe them. But something maybe we need to work on as Democrats is getting that the lie out of our politics. I have one question for Greg, and then I'm going to let him off the hook. I've had several people talk to me about our tent cities. And we've heard that first they were okay, then they weren't, then they were okay again. And now we've heard they're supposed to be cleaning up and moving out, but they're not. So could you kind of give me an idea of what's happening with those situations?
Yeah, no, so we, for years, since the 90s, had a law that basically said if you are sleeping outdoors, then it's a criminal offense. And the city council said, at some point, this is just look at Supreme Court precedent. We could look at our own hearts. We know that it can't be against the law to be in poverty. So we wrote rules and laws to say, you can't be bothering people. You can't be in a dangerous place. You can't litter. You can't hurt anybody. But if all that it is that you just don't have a place to be, then our job and our limited resources should be to helping you, because it doesn't help anything to throw you in jail for one night, spend the money and time on that, put you through that, and then it didn't do anything. So it's been a constant process of saying, well, these places are dangerous. These places are, you can't sleep in a park because those have curfews and people have places to be. We were working through all of that process, trying to improve it and then try to focus on housing people. Then COVID-19 hit, and there are CDC guidelines about moving people from place to place. There were contractors from the states that were doing a lot of the litter abatement that cut out because they basically said our workers are not going to go and be interacting with people and looking through people's stuff. So we've added new money, added new training so that we can better engage with people with the primary job of housing them, better throw away trash, better get people the trash bins and bags that they need. Because for some number of folks, it's just if you don't have anywhere to throw your stuff away, what happens? But then also we know that there are some places where there's a lot of trash because people rifle through those thrift store boxes for stuff. And that's, people need something to survive because it's not like there's people walking around to ask for money from. But at the same time, it leaves a lot of trash. So it's an almost impossible issue we've been dealing with for decades. So the baseline answer is, if there is accumulating trash, we should be calling 311. We are building out those contracts to pick up trash. If somebody, housed or unhoused, harasses anybody or confronts anybody or is a danger to anybody or like themselves or anybody else, that is still against the rules. And then if we want to stop seeing folks sleeping on the street, this is the moment when these hotels are largely empty for the city to do what it's never done and go and buy a bunch of hotels, house people, get them back on their feet, get them the jobs and security they need, get them out of the hotel and into their own life, and you can help thousands of people with just one hotel. And we need to go get 5 or 6 or 7 of them. Because if you look at articles in the 90s, when they first passed the law saying it would be a crime just to sleep outside, there were thousands of people homeless in Austin then, just like there's thousands today. And the police actually back then said, this will move people around, but it's not going to fix the problem. And we haven't. And so in this moment where hotels are cheaper is the moment we can finally really do something. And when we're seeing more people on the street. Right now, people are seeing more folks out because the shelters are at half capacity. So the answer is there are more people out because the shelters are at capacity. And we're dedicating finally more money to pick up trash. And all council members need a continued push for us to buy these hotels this year. Now, do it. So that's the plan.
Excellent. And I noticed there's a hotel just down the road from where I live is completely vacant. And then right across under the, the overpass of 183 is a tent city. And I'm going like, just move them across the road into the hotel. But
right, there are our neighborhoods, that are housed than on the street.
Yeah. So again, I applaud everything you're trying to do, and I know it's difficult. Okay, you're off the hook now. Okay, Greg, thank you so much. And I want everybody, and I know we've lost some people because I screwed up this morning not getting on, but please spread the word. Greg is running for re-election. He has an opponent. It's probably going to be pretty nasty. So give him all the support you can, either in funds or volunteering or just making a couple of phone calls, whatever he needs, spreading a sign, taking signs out, and ask your people to help. Okay. Yes, Emil? You're muted, Emil.
Kenneth has been trying to get in and talk to Craig.
Oh, okay. Kenneth, go ahead.
I just have a question for Greg. we talk a lot about the police force. They, clearly the Austin Police Department has acted very, very egregiously over the last several months. And I was wondering, at this point, do you support the demotion of Chief Manley?
I was the first council member to call for him to resign. And then 2 or 3 others followed me that same day. The city council by charter can't vote and can't tell our city manager what to do on that front because it's a separation of powers issue. And so I think that it's still the right thing for the chief to resign for us to be able to actually address these issues.
Okay, the follow-up question is, do you support the council removing Mr. Kronk if he refuses to take care of the police situation by demoting Mr. Manley?
I think that we could get to that place potentially. If there was a majority of council that felt that way, then you would have seen that kind of, you might have seen that kind of action. The fact of the matter is, we are just now coming out of the budget, heading into elections, and so we are now going into executive sessions to talk with the manager about what the manager's responsibilities are then. And so I'm at a place where it could get to that place if we don't see really, really significant change or atonement. But of course, it is a much bigger issue to change city managers, mid pandemic or do anything like that. And so I think the question is going to be, can we hold the manager? If the chief is just going to be who he is, then can we hold the manager to making the change that it is that we need? And if we don't see that, then yeah, we should change managers.
Do you see any reason for why Mr. Kronk is so resistant to disciplining Chief Manley? Is it that he supports those policies, or is there some politics going on that makes it difficult for him to do that at this time? Because it just seems very odd with the number of other cities around the country with much less provocation have removed their police chiefs, that Austin just refuses to do that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is clear that if you had a city council vote, we would have a different police chief. Right, you're now at a place where a majority of city council has expressed that they would want to see a change. So I frankly I'm having a lot of trouble understanding why things are the same way that they have been for the last few months. And I think that if the public doesn't get that transparency, then it's going to be on council at some point. But no, I wish I could tell you that there was an easy reason, because no, I don't have a good answer for you about why he hasn't made the change, to be honest, is really my answer. Because once I go through the list of things that have happened, I just don't see how another high-level city executive would not have been changed out. So my answer to you is I do not have a good reason.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Greg, and hang in there. We'll support you.
Thanks for accepting some of those last answers are me just trying to be honest on a really hard topic. So thank you for hearing that out.
Okay, that's what we want you to do. And we realize that it's a very tough job that you have. And particularly when the governor who lives here in Austin is such a anti-Austin person. I've never seen anything like it.
We never know with a question, with a constructive question, it's like we're a foreign power or something, where he lives.
Maybe you're comparable to one, because I think Austin is very powerful. I mentioned that the whole nation watches what Austin, Texas does. And when I moved here, it became very apparent to me because all my friends around the country kept saying, oh, you're living in Austin. What's going on in Austin? And, hey, it's just another city, right? No, it's not. Okay.
Well, thank you. I'll make sure to email you about volunteer days and opportunities. We're doing that pretty regularly. So thank y'all for your support.
Okay, yeah, you mail me and I'll get you some workers for you. Okay, now we're going to hopefully my next congressman, because I just moved to Maynard yesterday, okay?
Right.
So welcome aboard, Mike Siegel, and what can we hear from you?
Well, howdy, y'all. That was a very interesting conversation. Happy to be here with you. So let me just report out some good news. The momentum we're feeling, and I can take some questions as well. Big picture, this campaign's in a great position. I think we have to own that as Democrats, we're the ones with the solutions to the crises we're facing right now, right? I mean, we're still in this health pandemic. We've got a jobs crisis. Over 50 million Americans have applied for unemployment. The West Coast is on fire. Climate change is upon us. Our democracy is under attack every day, as brought into relief by the unfortunate passing of Justice Ginsburg. And so we do have the solutions to the crises we're facing. Democrats, we believe in universal health care, and I'm fighting to make sure we get health care for every single American. We believe that the federal government should be helping workers, not just propping up the stock market and bailing out the elite interests of this country, actually helping people in this moment, whether it's making sure we have safe workplaces or making sure that if we can't work safely, that we have the resources to stay home, keep a roof over our heads, food on the table until the crisis is over. And obviously on climate change, we actually believe science, same as the pandemic. We believe the International Coalition of Scientists who say we have to take strong action to protect our planet that would, address the drought in California and these fires there, that would address the increasing prevalence of these massive hurricanes in our region. And so I think we have to just feel confident that if we say our piece, that we can win. And in my race in particular, I have a wonderful chance to win this race. Came within 4% in 2018. And if any of you follow Michael McCall on Twitter or social media, he's scared. I mean, this is a guy who every day is attacking me 2-3 times a day, saying I'm a socialist, saying I want to abolish the police. I mean, facts don't matter to him. I mean, it's just, he's basically attacking me the same way Trump is attacking Biden. But to me, it shows how close we are that he's putting these resources. He's already announced that he's going to spend over $1 million on TV ads, probably several million. And so we have to compete with that. And so, I've built a campaign that has the resources this time. We've been doing very well. I have to apologize in advance. Some of you are going to be getting phone calls from me in the next couple of weeks. It's the end of quarter. This is kind of the last chance to pay for everything we need to pay for. But so far, we're on TV. We've been on cable for a couple of weeks. We're going to stay on TV and probably ramp up the broadcast. We're going to have a good mail program, digital, all that, all the paid communications. We've got a really powerful field program. And Robin's on the call here. He's our lead in Travis County. And I do want to give him a minute or two to kind of share what we're doing there. But we're making tens of thousands of phone calls already. Hopefully we'll get to the stage where we're making hundreds of thousands a week because that's what it takes. If you get on these dialers, that, there's a lot of hangups, a lot of no answers. And so it's really almost like an infantry style operation, brute force. Each person, 2 hours on the dialer, you might make dozens and dozens of calls. You might have only 5 or 10, good conversations. But what we're finding is that for every 10 people we talk to, 8 or 9 out of 10 promise to vote for me by the end. And these are not just Democrats we're reaching out to. We're reaching out to the universe of so-called undecideds or swing voters. These are people that sometimes vote in Democratic primaries, sometimes Republican primaries, or maybe they don't vote very much at all. And those folks, when we speak to them, when we share, like, I'm fighting for healthcare, fighting for jobs, McCall is corrupt, is only doing the bidding of his corporate backers, we would get a really great response. And so I'm hopeful that some of you will join these phone banks, basically 6 weeks and change at this point. And that's really key. I mean, the third part of our strategy is paid communications, the field program, then this kind of relational organizing or friend-to-friend outreach. That's all really also very important, especially during COVID-19, when I can't be in person with a lot of groups, when I can't knock on doors directly very often. And so, we're working, the Muslim community is contacting Muslim voters. The Sierra Club is contacting Sierra Club voters. Labor is contacting labor. And so to the extent any of you are in these different communities or maybe you could be a stakeholder for me to kind of spread the word, that can be very valuable. I mean, probably more valuable than 10 phone calls or, watching 10 TV ads. Having someone in your community, in your circle, speak for me or speak for other Democrats, that makes a big difference. And so we've put all this together and, truthfully, we were talking about with Greg, just how the misinformation of the other side on every single issue, whether it's calling COVID-19 a hoax, whether it's saying that addressing climate change is bad for jobs, nobody think we can create jobs while addressing climate change, or whether it's this idea about public safety that we can't criticize police officers without being accused of defunding the police and promoting anarchy basically is absurd. And so we have to lean into these issues and own the ground and say, okay, we're fighting for true public safety. But the only way we're going to get that message out is if we all kind of do everything we can these last 6 weeks and change to talk to voters and to spread the word. So I'm here to say that we can win this race, we can finish the job, but it does require a lot of work, and I hope you all will join me in doing that. So with that, I can pass the mic.
Mike, I have just a comment I want to share with you. We're talking about reaching out to voters. Now, of course, it's kind of a waste of time to talk to Democrats because you know we're going to vote for you. Reaching out to the marginal voter, or the one that flips, the independent, I think is the smartest thing to do. Reaching out to people, and I'm not sure how you do it anyway, but that don't vote. I was talking to somebody the other day. In fact, I bought a refrigerator from him, and I had my vote mask right here. See this one? This too can be yours for $20, guys. Okay, just send me the money. Anyway, it came up, and he said, "Oh, I don't vote." And I said, "Oh, really?" And he says, "No, my wife says that Nancy Pelosi, my wife owns beauty salons. And Nancy Pelosi went to a beauty salon and people died of COVID." I'm going, what? And so I'm assuming there's some crazy nonsense ad out there that they're listening to. But I'm thinking to myself, maybe you shouldn't vote. You're not checking out the truth. You're not paying attention to anything that matters. And you don't know who to vote for sensibly. So maybe you shouldn't. And then I felt guilty because we've always said everybody should vote. Everybody should have a voice. Everybody should, take that responsibility. So I'm going to throw it out there. What do you think, guys? Should everybody actually vote?
Well, everyone should be able to vote, and we should make it easy to vote. But our job as Democrats is to mobilize our side. I mean, this is a contest, right? And so we're reaching out to people that are likely to vote Democrat or are close enough to the middle that we think we can switch them. But yeah, we're not going to encourage people with reactionary ideas to vote. That's not helpful.
Well, in our club, when I founded this club, our number one, I didn't found it, I took it over because it was actually founded in Pflugerville by some Pflugervillites. But my purpose was education. I think that the job of this club is to educate our precinct chairs and those precincts about what is important so that you can make a decision in voting. And of course, we're going to lean, because we're a Democratic club, we're going to promote the Democratic philosophies. But the main thing is to acquaint people with what that is and how it impacts their lives. Hopefully, then they will vote accordingly. So that's why we exist, NETCo Dems. But like I said, when I was talking to that man, I didn't try to convince him to vote. I just shut up. I'm sorry.
Well, on a case-by-case basis, right. But I mean, we know as Democrats, if more people vote, we win. I mean, I'll tell you that I'm feeling very good, but I think we lose if the only electorate is the traditional kind of older crowd. I mean, no offense to anyone who identifies as older, but if you look at the voter, turnout models, if it trends older, then that's good for Republicans. If it trends younger, it's good for Democrats. And truthfully, if we can maintain the patterns of March 3 and July 14th, the two elections we've had so far this cycle, it looks really good. We'll see with Justice Ginsburg's passing, but there's some moderate Republican women, especially in places like Harris County, that might have voted for Trump, but they also believe in the right to choose. And so, I mean, it's so dynamic. It's like 1 week, the election is about one thing, the next week it's about something else. But I just think that on every one of these issues that we have the right answers, and it's just about getting our message out. And if you don't mind, Sandra, I just want to introduce Bravin to share a little bit about what's happening with the field program. Is that okay?
Sure.
Wonderful.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Sorry to cut you off, Bravin. Wendy did ping me about postcards. So maybe if you can mention our postcard program when you mentioned what you talked about.
Yeah, we're already writing some postcards for you. So we just distributed some last week. So hopefully we'll get some more. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And thanks so much, everyone, for taking the time out of your Saturday to be here. Well, as you all know, our campaign isn't just about, flipping the seat. It's about electing a progressive champion who's going to represent the people of the district. And we're up against one of the most powerful and entrenched incumbents in the country. He has all the money and corporate interests on his side. While he has all the moneyed interests and the super PACs behind him, we have people power, and we're building a grassroots movement to elect Mike. We have volunteers all over the country who are making calls and sending texts and organizing their friends and writing postcards on behalf of our campaign. And the only way we're going to win this election is if we have thousands of conversations with voters. And so we have phone banks every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Tuesdays and Thursdays from 6 to 8:30, and Saturdays from 4:30 to 7. And right now, I'm going to throw the link to those phone banks in the chat. And I'm going to ask everyone here to please sign up for at least 2 shifts, because the only way we're going to win this election is by reaching every voter in the district, not just Democratic voters and undecided voters, but voters who have been ignored by the traditional politicians that have been running here. So if everyone can go ahead and click that link in the chat, and please sign up for at least 2 shifts, that would be the biggest help you could give our campaign at this juncture. So once you do, just throw in a thumbs up into the chat, or react with a thumbs up. That'd be really great. And just to touch on our postcard program, we have a postcard request form that I'll throw into the chat as well. And that those postcards will be delivered to you. We recommend that you sign up just to write 100 or 150 if it's your first time. And they'll be delivered to you, and we'll pick them up as well. But I want to stress that the most effective thing you can do is make calls. During coronavirus times, we can't knock on doors as much as we would like, but what we can do is have one-on-one conversations with voters. And having those one-on-one conversations is the best way and most effective way to persuade undecided voters onto our side. But yeah, thanks everyone so much for their time, and thank you so much for the support. I will give it back to Mike.
Okay, I just want to make one little comment here. I of course have been a phone banker for, let's see, 2008, I think is when I started with the Obama campaign. So I made hundreds of thousands of phone calls, but I still like getting that handwritten postcard. That every time I get one, I get chills. I thought somebody took the time, to write this down to me, even if it's just, please go vote. It just means so much. And so that's why I'm, handing out postcards for people. But anyway, Wendy, did you have a question? Did Wendy disappear? Where'd you go?
Well, she wanted to ask about the postcards, and we are doing them. I think we've got tens of thousands we've got lined up. And you're right, Sandra. I think it is, especially for certain folks who might be more isolated, to get that personalized message really means a lot. But I think what Bravin's pitching is that, our path to victory is about convincing some people, persuasion. And so that's where, there's not really the opportunity for persuasion with a postcard. It's more of just a nice positive touch. And so, that is where the rubber hits the road. It's the hardest thing to do, and it's also the most valuable.
Well, I also want to mention when Andy Brown was running for the county judge position, he was the only one that sent me a handwritten postcard. And then he sent a letter from his mom. And then I got a drawing from his little boy.
That was above and beyond. Well, now I got to call my mom and have her send you a handwritten card.
Absolutely. I mean, Andy worked on Beto's campaign, so he knows what he's doing there. And of course he did win. But the thing was, it was that personal touch. It's just, I felt like, well, I have to vote for him. We're like neighbors.
Well, just to share one touching story, we had this big phone bank with these climate activists from the Sunrise Movement. These are like teenagers and 20-somethings mainly. And one of them spoke to a woman who was in a hospital in Washington County, and apparently hadn't spoken to anybody other than nurses and doctors in weeks, and had a really long conversation, and actually followed up the next day with us and was like, I think that woman's going to die in a few days. Can I call her back? How do I get back in touch? And so these phone calls can also have that same, amazing ramifications of creating connection, creating community, making us feel like we're part of this together.
I think that's the important thing. It isn't just simply the phone call or the postcard. It's the personal touch. And that means so much to anybody who's voting, definitely. So keep up the good work. And like I said, now I can vote for you. I got to get
Right.
registered though.
But and Maynard's a battleground. I mean, that's huge. So we'll follow up about Maynard. There's a lot of good work to do. Well, let me, David Albert, you want to throw a question out there? Good to see you, sir.
Sure. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. So given that we've had Supreme Court seats stolen, essentially, would you support a bill in the next Congress to expand the Supreme Court? This would have to go through both the House and the Senate. If it's, if they get their nominee through, it's basically 6-3. Maybe add something like adding 4 seats to the court.
Yeah, I think it's a very volatile proposition, but this is a very volatile time. I mean, and so I think, there's that analogy you might have heard, the velvet glove and the iron fist. Sometimes you have to like show people, well, if you take it there, we're going to take it here, kind of thing. And I think that has to be on the table. I mean, let's be clear. In our history, we've had various compositions of the Supreme Court. It's not constitutionally mandated that it has to be 9 members of the Supreme Court. And so that's definitely a possibility. To me, there are these kind of gentlemen's agreements, whatever the non-gender specific way of saying that, these norms that we've adopted, to create stability. And that's very important. We've had a lot of stability in this country in terms of our history. But I think it would be extremely disruptive and damaging to democracy if we have a permanent Trump majority on the Supreme Court. And so, I think that we have to do what's best to save our democracy. And that could be that, if we win the Senate, we win the White House, we keep the House, and Trump, forces through his nominee, which unfortunately he has the power to do right now, then yeah, we have to put that on the table, to increase the court.
Thank you.
Anybody
I think you're right. I think that's probably going to be necessary to protect our civil rights and so much else.
That scares me, that's for sure. Any other questions for Mike? Okay, everybody just get get that link, and we will be posting this on Facebook, by the way, so that it will reach out to more people, because we did lose some because I screwed up today, and I really apologize. I need a new computer. That'll be the second thing I buy now.
I hope to see you next month. Good to see all your faces, and even to have the participation of people that aren't showing their faces. And let's go win. Let's win all these races.
Absolutely, every one of them. We're going to work our butt off. Okay, next I'm going to bring up my favorite tax man, Bruce.
Bruce.
You ready to talk to us, Bruce, about what's coming up?
Sure. Hey, Mike, it's good to see you. I think you just logged off. I'm so honored to be on a Democratic Party ticket with Mike and Wendy and Julie. And, I told them all early on that, I thought it was going to be uphill, but if there was ever a year to be running, this is the year. And it's very exciting, and the potential is enormous. 24 hours ago, we couldn't have imagined that there'd be more on the line this election. And here we are. It's ratcheted up even more. And it is just so critical that we take the Senate back. If Trump wins and we don't have the Senate, I don't have words for that. So that's what we have to do. We have to take the Senate back. I want to talk a little bit about voter registration, since we're 16 days away before. Okay, I'm going to talk about what you tell me to talk about.
No, I just want to tell you something. I'm going to hold this up here. Let me see. See that?
Oh, thank you.
Okay. This is from
NETCo,
Dems, and I encourage anybody.
Don't show your account number.
But anyway, those that are in attendance, please, if you can contribute and help Bruce out, I'm sure he'd appreciate it. And then just spread the word to the people you know. Every little bit helps. So you go ahead now and talk about your voter registration and the special new ballot processing.
Sure. Well, thank you. We probably have to put a disclaimer on that advertisement. I very much appreciate it. So we have 16 days left until the October 5th voter registration deadline. And we have an app right now called Text to Register. If you text register to I Vote, You can fill out your application online. We're not an online voter registration state, unfortunately, so we have to mail it to you for a signature. But we do that with a postage paid envelope. And that's good up until about October 1st. After October 1st, we're not recommending that anybody mail voter registration applications. They should walk them into the office. They should use one of our drop boxes at airport and our other county locations. And on October 5th, the tax office and our other county locations will be open until midnight. And so we're going to be out there registering voters. We've added 67,000 registered voters, I think, this cycle. Yes, and
that was the end of my loaf, so I toasted it so it wasn't frozen.
Catherine,
I didn't give it to the dogs.
there, I think I got her. Catherine,
Yeah.
you're not muted.
Catherine should share with us. But anyway, so we're at 95%, a little bit over 95% voter registration, which is a new record. And I think that we will probably add 20, 30, 40,000 new applications in the next 16 days. And so we're very excited about that. I think you wanted me to touch on vote by mail. So vote by mail, the deadline to get your application in for vote by mail is October 23rd. And it has to be in Dana's hands. It can't be postmarked. And so, again, you don't want to wait till the last minute to do that. You want to get it into her office just as quick as you can because we don't want to be relying on the Postal Service. Beginning October 1st, Dana's going to be setting up a handful of places where you can turn in your ballot in person. So you don't have to mail it in. You can feel comfortable that they've received it. You're going to show them an ID. You're going to.
Hey, I'm losing you, Bruce.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, I'll lean closer. So you'll be able to show your photo ID and sign a roster, and you'll be confident that your ballot has been received by the clerk's office. So those are going to be open from October 1st through November 3rd, 8 to 5 until early voting, and then during early voting, 7 to 7. And so that's a good way. I want to encourage everybody who can vote by mail to consider doing so. And the reason is, well, a couple of reasons. One is your safety. We want to keep people safe. I wish we all had that option. But the other is we need to build capacity in the lines for people who cannot vote by mail, like me. And we want to keep the lines as short as possible. And so if you can vote by mail, do that and get out of the line because we're going to have very long lines. Even though we've added a week of early voting, we had a 15% turnout in July. We're going to have hopefully a 70 to 75% turnout in November. And any way you look at it, the lines in some places are going to be very long. And we want to do everything we can to make them as short as possible. I encourage y'all to tell your friends to bring a cheat sheet with you. This is the first time we don't have straight party voting. And that's not all the ballot because there's people like David that's below the party ballots. But, it goes a lot faster when we have straight party voting. Now you got to go slog through all the judge races and the other races you may not be as familiar with. So if you do that work in advance, have your cheat sheet, you'll be able to vote a little bit faster and the line will move faster. I think we want to encourage people to be patient. Bring a book or a Kindle, bring a lawn chair, bring a drink. Plan that the period of voting is going to take some time, and if you get in and out quick, that's a great thing. But what you can't do is, oh my God, the line's too long. I'm just not going to do it. You got to get in that line and you got to make the commitment. We've got to help people with that. If you go to votetravis.com, you can see what your ballot's going to look like, so you can mark it up. You can make sure you're registered at your current address. You'll be able to see all the polling place information early and election day. And we have a wait time map. And so you'll be able to look at the different polling places and see what the estimated wait times are. So if down the street, it's an hour and a half and go, well, I don't really want to do that. But if you drive 10 minutes, it might be 20-minute wait time. And so hopefully we'll be able to move the voters around, spread them out a little bit better with that. So we're excited about our wait time app. What else do you want me to talk about vote by mail?
Well, one thing I need to ask you a question, since I'm transitioning between two precincts, moving from Austin to Manor, I have to re-register, and I already have a ballot by mail application in, but I'm not sure I'm going to get it if my post office doesn't get it forwarded to me in time. So what do I do if I don't get a ballot?
Well, you would contact Dana's office.
Okay.
And Dana, the other thing I should mention on the votetravis.com is that they have a way that you can track your ballot. Starting like Monday or Tuesday, if they have your application, you're going to be able to see, yes, they have their application. You're going to be able to see the estimated date that the ballot's going to be mailed. You're going to be able to see it's kind of like tracking a package. And I think that that's going to be helpful, and that's going to give people peace of mind, or get them to call the clerk's office before it's too late if there's a glitch. And we're going from maybe 20,000 ballots to 60 or 70,000 mail ballots this time. So it's a challenge for the county clerk to deal with this increased volume.
That's it. Yeah, and I usually work the ballot board, and I'm not going to be, so somebody's got to take my place. I think we have a question from Wendy now. Wendy? Are you ready?
Carol has a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, Carol.
Hi. I had my voter registration table open this morning in my driveway.
Yay.
And you answered my question because I filed a request for a mail-in ballot earlier this year, and I got one for July. So I was just wondering if that keeps me on the roll to get one, but I can check online on Monday?
You'll be able to check online, and if you check the box that you wanted it for the year, you should be fine.
Okay, great.
But I'm encouraging everybody, this is not the year to assume everything's fine.
Right, check on it.
You want to check and double check, and Dana's okay with y'all being a pest. And, we want to make sure that that your ballot's going to come through. So it's okay to be a pest this year.
Great. And Sandra, I signed up for ballot board. I'll be working it for 3.5 weeks.
Awesome. Thank you.
So you're off the hook now, Sandra. It's good you found a replacement.
I am so glad. Yes, indeed. Thank you, Karen.
That was the best way I felt I could help with this election.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, the county clerk needs hundreds of election workers, ballot board people, early vote, election day. They have a phenomenon now where with the COVID, they're getting a number of people who sign up to work the election and then drop out because of their fears. And so Dana's having to have an A team of people who are ready to go on the early vote and election day, and a B team of people who are ready just to step in as people drop out. Because the worst thing in the world is to have one or more polling places that just don't open at 7 in the morning because they're not staffed. Mm-hmm. And so the other thing I'd mention here is that the state law allows 16-year-olds to work the polls. And this is a great opportunity for young people to really see up close what the voting process is like. And so if you know some kids who would be interested in doing that, they're eligible, and they might be able to get some credit towards a term paper or something. For doing that. So I think that's great, and we want young people to be involved. The research says that if they're involved like that, they're much more likely to make registering and voting a lifelong habit. That's certainly what we want to see.
Absolutely, absolutely. Does anybody else have any questions for Bruce? Oh, did you mention the ballot pickup, the collection?
Well, yes, there will be several drive-through locations, including 5501 Airport. You want to be patient. The lines are going to be long, but you won't have to get out of your car. The bank building, the old bank building, United Savings at 11th Street and between Lavaca and Guadalupe will be a location. And then there's a bank drive-through that the county bought a block south of that that will be a drive-through location too. And
so they're all in the downtown area.
Well, those two are in the downtown area, and then the tax office one, we're giving a lineup in our drive-through for ballots. Okay. And so you'll be able to do that. But again, you want to be patient. But the benefit is that you know that they received your ballot. It's not sitting in the postal service somewhere.
Yeah,
so that's a good thing. Yeah. Absolutely. So the final thing I'll say, if there's no other questions, I'll be happy to answer questions too, is I very much appreciate your generosity, and there's some others on this call who've been very generous, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate them. When you're a down ballot candidate that's not perceived to have serious opposition, it's a lot harder to raise money. But I tell younger candidates the political graveyard is filled with candidates who thought they were going to win. and you just have to run like you're going to lose. And if you win, it's a good thing. And given the contrast between myself and my opponent, this is not one we want to lose. She doesn't support voting by mail. She doesn't support online voter registration. She wants to shift the property tax to a sales tax, which would really hurt poor people. And that's so, you know, I don't think she's going to win, but we don't want to give her a chance to do so. So if you want to be like Sandra and some others on this call, you can go to bruceelfant.com, or you can send a paper check. Either is good. And I'm going to be in your area this weekend. If you want a yard sign, you can either put it in the chat room or you can message me on Facebook, and I will put you on the yard sign list. And I so much appreciate all y'all are doing and your support. And, you know, we know the last 24 hours have told us that it just can't be more important than we get this done. This election's about voting rights. It's about health care. It's about choice. It's about same-sex marriage. It's just all in the line, and we have to give this our all.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Bruce. And I would like a yard sign, but I'm clear out in Manor. Can I pick one up somewhere?
No, I'll deliver it. Send me your address, and I'll deliver.
Okay, Bruce, did you put it on the chat?
Yes, I will put it on the chat.
Okay, because we will post that on our Facebook and then everybody can see it. And I also have some people who want to help you, so if you want them to help you, let me know.
I appreciate that very much.
Okay. I think next on our agenda is David Albert. Are you ready to talk about your bid for the Board of Trustees?
Sure, and I hope you're going to give Jim McDonald some time also after me. So actually, I think I'll start by addressing a question you asked earlier about should everyone be voting? And as an educator who educates students about government and politics, I encourage them to vote, but I encourage them that you should be voting where you can cast a well-informed vote. You should be, you have to study the elections and learn about them and, educate yourself and those around you. It's not a process. It's not a one-time thing of I'm going to vote. It's a process to get to the day to vote. And, obviously we shouldn't have literacy tests, or anything like that, which were used to prevent people from voting. And I'm not saying you were implying that, but we need a well-educated electorate. Frankly, I think the 2016 election was an example of the failure of civic education in this country.
I agree with that.
That half the population felt that this person was even remotely qualified to be president. I mean,
I think Facebook actually had a lot to do with the 2016 election with all their garbage.
Well, there's a lot of things that had to do with it. Anyway, but that's a way of also getting into what I want to talk about. As I'm running for the Del Valley School Board, Del Valley ISD, I want to thank people here. There are a few people who have already donated to my campaign, and our nation is in crisis, and maybe no aspect of it is in a greater crisis than our educational system at the moment. We're hearing more about education than I think we've ever heard about whether universities should open, whether schools should open, whether they should stay open, what they should do. I mean, we're talking about education. I wish we were always talking about education like the way we are now, and realize, we kind of overlook it a lot of the time and just it's just kind of background noise and take it for granted. And maybe we're realizing how important our teachers are, how important our educators, the people that our school staffs, and so, I'm running where I live down in Montopolis, in Del Valley District. I know most of you I don't think anyone here lives there, but please talk to your friends, because it's school boards matter so much. Del Valley is at a turning point with the Tesla coming in. it's going to change a great deal in that area. And, we're going to have to balance things like economic development and maintaining our neighborhoods and, against gentrification. And that's going to be very, very tricky. So,
yeah, just to let you know, I'm working with Eddie Rodriguez and Tina Bryan and Jeff Trevelyan to try to get some changes made in that area and the Tesla impact. So just because I moved to Maynard doesn't mean I'm ignoring the rest of the county. It'll still be under my wing, so to speak.
It's very important. And Eddie is also another thing he's pushed that's really, really good that I want to see is community schools, which is to me is a much better model of making the school a center for all sorts of services to be provided for the community. Let me give you the very short version of my platform, which is I'm against a lot of these educational reforms that the right wing has been pushing. They have pushed, they call it accountability, that's standardized testing, which does nothing for our students. They've pushed charters and vouchers and districts of innovation and a lot of other nonsense that does nothing to help our students and undermines our schools. What we need to do is stand by our teachers, stand by all of the people that work in our schools, support them so that our teachers aren't working 3 jobs and paying for school supplies on their own. We need to fund our schools. And this is going to be a huge challenge in the legislature. And believe me, if I'm elected, and really if I'm not as well, I will be down at the legislature fighting for our schools in the next session because it's going to be brutal. That's both public ed and higher ed where I work. What we need is to support our educators with the appropriate salaries and benefits and professional development opportunities so that they can best serve our students. They can be servant leaders to our students. They should not be forced to return before it's safe. That's happening in a number of areas here. AISD looks like it's going to be a real problem because they're moving towards reopening, and I think probably too soon, and the union is against it. But if basically it comes down to one simple idea. If our employees, our educators are successful, our students will be successful. If we underpay and undercompensate and disrespect the people that work in our schools, and that's happened too much, our schools will fail and fail our students. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm glad to take questions if anyone has any. And of course, donations are welcome. It's a very small campaign. I will put my my link in the chat box. davidfordelvalley.com.
Okay, David, thank you.
This is my logo of the Montopolis Bridge, bridging a bridge over troubled waters.
Yes, I like that. But I know it's stating the obvious, but we got to remember that students of today are our legislators and leaders of tomorrow, of which when you get to be my age, that's going to be incredibly important. So just keep
absolutely.
Okay. Any questions for David or comments? If not, I'm going to ask Jim McDonald what he's up to and if he'd like to say something. Jim?
Well, that's nice of you. Sorry, I turned my camera off. I had some fried rice that I heated up and I was eating and didn't want to eat.
It is lunchtime. Oh, and by the way, I need to tell everybody, I did go to Tres Amigos. They are open. Of course, we can't have our meetings there yet, but the future holds good promise, okay? I miss that place so much. Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you, Sandra. I just wanted to check in. I knew Mike was speaking and Greg, and I'm going to reach out. I'd like to reach out to Greg and maybe sit down and have lunch with him sometime because I've been meaning to do that over the last few months and just haven't made time with that. It seems like with the pandemic going on, it seems like many of us are busier than we've ever been. I don't know if that's because we have more time to do things because we're not driving around as much or what, but my plate is full, and every day I go to bed concerned about all the things I didn't get done. And so there's a lot going on. I think I heard somebody mention, it might have been you, Bruce, said something about running your campaign in a certain way. And a friend of mine summed it up. He said, there's two ways to run a campaign: unopposed and scared. And so I have an opponent. It's very interesting. He's adopted a Fred Rogers meme. And if you have a chance to see any of his videos, I don't know that if he'll be facing copyright infringement issues or not, but it's interesting, very interesting. But again, we don't, 2020 is that crazy year, and none of us know what happens. And so we're campaigning as diligently as we can, given the restrictions that we're facing. Appreciate all of y'all sharing the word, the effort that I see y'all putting in to our blue wave is absolutely amazing. And I am still optimistic. I know that yesterday I was devastated. But I saw some words that someone shared from Judge Ginsburg, and in her darkest hours, she never gave up. She always fought, and so that's my motto moving forward. And I'm going to continue to be cautiously optimistic, and fight for what we know is right for our country and for our county and for our municipalities. So.
Thank you so much, Jim. And the thing is, at NETCo Dems, because we cover.
Excuse me, Sandra, he didn't say what he was running for.
Sorry, Pflugerville City Council, a re-election campaign. If you happen to ease up into the Pflugerville area for my precinct chairs, I would love to drop off a half dozen signs to you so you could distribute those to folks that come get those other awesome signs that y'all have stockpiled.
Yeah, and normally, Jim, we have a lot more precinct chairs from your area attending today, but today just was a bummer. I probably lost 50 people, okay? I take full responsibility. But like I said, this will be on Facebook and they'll hear it. And then I'm also going to email people and tell them, to be sure to watch this, that kind of thing, so they can get caught up. And you know that we are there for you like we were before. So, but what I started to say about Austin, like I'm living in Manor and I have certain personal ties to Pflugerville and of course Austin. We are Travis County, and it is all of us that have to work together as a unity, not just Austin, but Pflugerville, Manor, and all the other surrounding counties. Another one of my favorites is Laga Vista, which seems to get forgotten every time. But I make trips up there periodically, haven't for a while, but just to remind them that they are part of Travis County and they still, are important. Their needs are still important to us as well. So with that, does anybody else have anything they want to contribute to today's meeting? It's all open. By the way, Phil, good to see you. I can't see you, but I see your name here.
Happy Rosh Hashanah to everyone.
Right. Yes, David, I forgot. Yes, my son is also doing some work with the Jewish community. He's always doing the music for them. So.
Lashana Tova, Happy New Year. May this be a sweet new year. The tradition is apples and honey.
Okay, with that, I guess we'll close our meeting.
Well, one more note on Rosh Hashanah. There's a long tradition that those who die on the last day of the last year are those who God wanted to hold on to the last moment.
The idea is that your names are written in the book of life for the coming year. On Rosh Hashanah and on Yom Kippur, the book is sealed. So I think it was particularly, the holiday started literally at sundown last night, and we got the word of her death, maybe an hour before sundown. I think it was, for me, it was even more tragic at that moment.
David, are you not going to talk about the LAD fundraiser?
Oh, thank you. There is a LAD fundraiser at 2 p.m. tomorrow. I don't have the link right in front of me. I can find it, but if anyone's interested, just contact me, or let me see if I can find it real quick. But we raise money for the club, but also for Mobile Loaves and Fishes. We've been doing this, I think it's our 7th year now of doing this fundraiser. Obviously different this year. Speaking, he's usually our speaker for this. And so I invite everybody. It will be streamed on Facebook. No, excuse me, there's a Zoom link. There's a Zoom link for it, and glad to have anybody who wants to come. I'm going to give you 2 links because one is a public link and one is a link for members of our closed group, and I'm not quite sure which one is which at the moment, but one or the other will get you in. So I think we've raised $4,000 or $5,000, as I said, a portion of that going to Mobile Loaves, which I think is, been our sort of adopted charity and needed, more than ever.
Mm-hmm. Put your last minute notes in the chat area so that we'll grab them before we close it.
Oops. I'm sorry. I sent the.
Oh, hi, this is Mandy. I just wondered if, Emil, did you have anything to mention about voter registration events or anything?
No, I don't. I think Bruce had covered anything that I would have wanted to say today.
Yeah, and Carol did her own thing, having her own voter registration, which I just think is marvelous. She's set up in her driveway. And it's absolutely, I'm going to do that once I get moved in. I can't wait.
I love everyone's enthusiasm and hard work.
Yeah. Our precinct has set up a democracy cabinet on Avenue F, and with voter registration, ABBM, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm not doing any in-person activity under my circumstances.
Understandable.
Totally makes sense. That's really cool that they have that cabinet set up, though.
Well, and we've got to do, I think, a little more personal things like Carol is doing, because we're not, us of a certain advanced age, are not safe to be out in, the general public. So I've been pretty much sequestered for 6-7 months now. It seems like forever, but the only places I've been is to my new home and to my doctor and occasionally to Walmart, but usually I have everything delivered. That's it. So I've been staying pretty close to home, but I think if I could set up in my own driveway, maybe I can be, pretty careful and keep smaller numbers, that kind of thing. So
and despite
anyway,
what our president says, we won't have a vaccine until, available probably till the middle of next year at the earliest. So this is going to go on for a while, friends.
it's going to change our entire way of life. And I already notice now, people aren't shaking hands anymore. Remember, that was just an automatic when you met somebody, or in Texas, we hug, and that's all going to go by the wayside, I think, which I'm really sad about, but that's the way it is. So anyway, thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. Again, we can view this on Facebook. Next month, things will be settled in a little better. We'll have some more of our candidate guests, and I'm inviting all of you, Bruce and Jim and David, to come back again, and we'll have you speak again a little bit, because we're getting awful damn close now.
We
So
are. We are.
be safe. Keep the faith. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Everybody stay safe.
Bye.
For our